Twinkle, twinkle, Zack and Lucas podcast show. How I wonder what you are. Up above the internet, so high, like a beautiful podcast in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, Lucas and Zack podcast show. I don't remember the last line of this song.
I was sort of hoping you were going to sing Frank Sinatra because we are talking about a New York movie. But, yeah, no, that was good. Welcome into what I believe is episode 25 of our podcast. Continuing the Tony Scott and Denzel Washington run with, we are now going underground into the subway for the taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. But we have a couple of pieces of business first. It's actually a train noise.
There had to have been a train song. What am I doing with my life? I should have had a better song.
There's definitely a song, some like
Train drops to Jupiter by train.
Woody Guthrie has to have a song about trains or something.
Yeah. It's okay. I'll come up with the plane songs for next month.
We do have a little bit of business to do first. I was reminded by our producer that we have emails to read, and I'm very bad at checking the account, which is all my fault. Mostly because I don't think I ever gave Zack the password. I'm
very unaware of our internet presence in general, so it's okay.
Hey, we're actually kind of blowing up right now. I don't know if you know this. I was looking at the stats. I haven't been looking them up. We're coming off some of our best weeks. Nearly 40 listens a week, and
Wait, crazy. I thought we peaked at Tom Hanks.
No, we're having every week we're getting like not only the newest podcast, but also like 5 to 6 other podcasts getting multiple views a week. So we're doing pretty good right now. But let us go to the emails. We have a first email from Mr. Michael Campbell. The subject line is episode titles, and the email reads thus: "Hi guys, it's your biggest fan Michael here. Just wanted to bring something up to you. It is regarding the titles of your episodes. I feel like they could be more professional, aesthetically pleasing, and help get more views than the 4 you get." Wow. Our biggest fan taking shots at us already.
Yeah. I mean, this is producer Michael Campbell, so he's allowed to give us some advice.
I think you should number them. Numbering your episodes is never bad unless people know the order in which you've released them. I mean, so does looking at the dates they released, in case, people can...
It also doesn't matter. It's not like we have this deep lore in the show that you have to follow.
In fact, actually, in some ways, listening to them out of order might be helpful because Zack will often reference things that haven't been talked about. Unless, also, if people see that you have on to say episode number tweaks, then they know that you guys have been doing this for a while and are somewhat experienced, or not experienced, or terrible. And for the final reason, how are you going to have a brand that sells mugs, t-shirts, and condoms, but not even have the name of your podcast in the title of your episode? Big missed opportunity, methinks. I blame Paul Yoyama. He told me to take it out of the title of the episode. So Michael, can you please write Paul? I'll give you his email. And
I also can take it out of the episode. Why? It's the name of the show. You already know what you're looking at. Who are you?
Anyway, that's all for today, guys. I hope you hear my advice and at least consider it. That's all I ask. Keep on being you. Your personalities are so rocking. Love, Michael. Some good, helpful advice. We love you too, Michael. And then a second...
added with everything he said.
There's a second email, no subject line, so, potentially could be spam. We don't know if it's actually the real Michael Campbell. Hey, guys. Michael here. Saw your call for family rankings and decided to grant your wish for the twist. I will rank a family from least annoying to most annoying, but it won't be mine. It will be Zack's. So
yeah.
Zack, how are you telling me? I feel like I'm a part of the Fullerford household. The way they've taken me in and helped me grow has shaped who I am today, and I will be forever grateful. I think I've good rest of them as people, so without further ado, here are my rankings. This will be least annoying first, and the people will get more annoying as we go down. So, least annoying. Sarah, obviously, she's the mother of Theo. That grants her immunity. She's also the reason Theo will grow up a Cavs fan, and though it may be delayed, it will be a LeBron stan.
LeBron's not going to be playing in his life. LeBron's going to be like being a Wilt Chamberlain fan to Theo.
Number 7. So this is again still in the least annoying group. Gertrude, like Zack said, just chill, minds her own business. Good cat.
Good cat.
Number 6, Zack's mom, good babysitter, will watch movies with you, has settled into the grandma mode nicely, is not Marie from Everybody Loves Raymond, so that's always a plus.
Wait, how do we jump to number? Oh, we're going down. I'm like, how Wait, what 8 family members is here?
I don't know.
Okay.
Here's 8 ranked. Number 5, Theo. Obviously, Theo is the chosen child, but that's just it. He's still a child. And as Zack once said about the students he teaches, fuck them kids. It's not Theo's fault. He's a baby. His destiny is beyond winning this list. Number 4, Zack. This feels right. He's a fun hang, can talk to him, but also low-key weirds you out a bit.
I thought it was going to be like number 1, so
Would be lower on this list if he didn't have so much flannel. Needs a nice little blankie to use while cuddling up on the couch. Zack's flannel. Need a tablecloth. Zack's flannel. It's just so much that it's overwhelming.
Yeah, I'm in a sweater right now with a nice long tea stain from this morning.
And I am wearing much better
class. This was like I was reading the comments of my class Google Meets, and it says, "Mr. Ford, did you realize you spilled tea all over yourself?" And my response was, no. It's like really long.
Number 3, other cat.
Morton.
Number 2, Zack's brother. As I'm sure you're aware, he recently got Letterboxd, and the way he's been using it is really just a microcosm of how he lives his life, which is to say, it's to no one's surprise he's the second most annoying person of the Fullerford family.
I agree. His Letterboxd is miserable to watch.
I believe you showed it to me, and he has some really extreme views. Every movie is a 5 or a 1. There's no.
He also did the notorious not realizing the difference between like rating a movie and putting it in your diary, and marked 5,000 movies as watched on December 1st.
And now to our number 1. It could only be this person. It is, of course, Zack's sister. First of all,
that's right.
First of all, she doesn't even have a Letterboxd account or watch movies. And because of this, she doesn't pull her weight when it comes to paying for a streaming service that we can all share. You just cannot talk to this woman. And also, I'm kind of afraid she might accidentally kill someone one day. Yeah, how do you think of Michael's ranking?
It's right for. I think I'm a little high.
Are you saying you don't low-key weird people out?
And I think he's been very generous to my mom.
Is he being generous to Theo?
I think I should be lower in the list. I think I high-key weird people.
Oh, you're more annoying. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I should
have rated myself.
Anyway, guys, that's my ranking. Hope you enjoyed. Love, Michael.
Hey, Lucas, you gotta say your family and get Michael a gnome so he can rank your family next.
No. I do my best to keep Michael from knowing anything about my family because he has too much dirt on me and will definitely blackmail me someday when I'm attempting to become a state senator. And I'll be the weirdest. I'll be the Massachusetts state senator whose biggest policy is easier extradition, and immigration from Australia.
Cool. I'll be the guy. What job do I have in your office? Is it still cabinet? If it's like,
well, not a senator. If I become president, what job would I let Zack be? I mean, you could be Secretary of Education.
Fuck yeah.
I mean, I feel like you don't really want to be Secretary. You want to be like special envoy to Sweden or something.
I don't know. I want to be education secretary. We're all doing outdoor school. There's no more buildings. We're all going to be in the woods.
Zack's policies killed my re-election campaign.
We're going to teach them trades like the good old days. They're all going to learn how to change a tire instead of do math.
Zack's like, you guys are going to get really good at digging ditches.
And you're just going to be holes around the whole country. We're all going to be digging holes until they find me that treasure.
Zack's also going to be like, and you're going to get really good at raking my yard. And, gardening if I want to grow a garden. Yeah. With that said, we have read Mr. Campbell's emails. So thank you to him for sending us emails. And we will continue on to our usual opening segment, which is, of course, last Letterboxd movie, Mr. Zack Ford. Hit it.
We spent way too long going Michael that now I have forgotten my last Letterboxd review.
It was the last goodbye, I believe you said.
Now I was going to do. I'm going to talk about Between the Lines.
What is Between the Lines?
I should have done the Bee Gees. Okay, anyways, Between the Lines. This is directed by Joan Nicholson Silver, who's having. It's hard to say like having a moment. She died, so a lot of people are reappraising her movies, and I think like a lot of people becoming learning to know her. I really didn't know who she was or aware of her movies before this week. So it's unfortunate that it takes a death of an artist to get them any kind of spotlight back in their career. Or I'm sure she's had some levels of spotlights, but not anything that as noticeable. I just noticed her popping up in my letterbox a lot. So I watched Between the Lines on Criterion Channel. Between the Lines is a real hangout movie. It is about an alternative newspaper in Boston. And it's like loosely about the paper, but more just about the journalists' lives. You do get to see them work a little bit, but there's romances. They hang out in the bars. It's an early Jeff Goldblum movie, doing like real crazy Jeff Goldblum shit, and he plays like a keyboard at some point. He's kind of the wild card of the group, which is a real live wire fun thing to watch. John Hurd, it's like probably one of his more lead performances for him, based on the role. But really, if like for especially the like 80s, 70s subgenre of hangout movies like The Big Chill and that stuff, it fits perfectly in that category. I think there is some like weird editing moments. It just seems like a little sloppy at points, but you kind of forget that in retrospect because it's also just fun to be around these people, and they flesh out the characters in a real life way, and the decisions they make are more complex than they are up front, and like touch in their gray area with what they do in life. So it's an interesting movie, and I recommend diving. I hope to dive more into her filmography as well. I want to watch Crossing Delancey soon. So everybody else should check her out too.
Yeah, I also was unfamiliar with her before this happened, and I started to notice people do the same thing you do, which was like people were watching a lot of her stuff. This movie actually does sound pretty cool, so I might check it out. Yeah, but it is kind of sad that somebody like this would probably have never popped up on my radar if not for tragic passing, and then everyone being like, "Oh, this person died. Maybe we should re-examine it." That is kind of I guess, a sad commentary on like the state of filmmaking, and also I feel like something that happens with a lot of female directors. Zack, I'm blanking on her name. Who directed Laggies? And she also did
Shelton.
Lynn Shelton. I believe Lynn Shelton kind of had this happen too, where Lynn Shelton died, and suddenly Lynn Shelton was receiving this level of bump that just did not exist at all before she died. And it does seem like it's a thing, especially with female directors who tend to be a little bit more under the radar and a little bit more, a little less watched, so that their kind of their big moment is unfortunately a moment after they are already gone and can no longer take advantage of the moment.
Yeah, because Lynch especially never really got her like big kind of Hollywood chance. Maybe she wasn't interested, but she did do TV work, which makes me seem that she did want to take stuff for a job. Because she did a lot of directing on Glow and some other TV shows I can't think of as well. But she always stayed within the indie realm. But like a good comparison to her career of someone that had more notes. I mean, she was like Duplass Brothers. She easily should have had the same notes as the Duplass Brothers have had, and they've gotten a little more money for some of their movies. There's no reason. Laggies, I guess, kind of her like more Hollywood chance.
I guess. That's still A24, still pretty low. There's a lot of male indie directors we've seen in recent years who have one indie movie that people like and then try to make a giant blockbuster and fail spectacularly.
Yeah.
And it is kind of, it's a little interesting. Maybe she didn't want to do that, but it is interesting that, Lynn Shelton never maybe got that chance.
But watching the show movies, they're all great.
Yeah.
Some of the movies of 2019. So
yeah, she's very good.
Go on.
My last movie in Letterboxd was interesting. So this movie came out. This was like the movie that you had to go to the theaters for. It had this huge push, kind of failed pretty spectacularly.
I like this like answer giving. Are we now going to get people to guess our movies we're going to talk about?
No. I just think that I think that it's interesting that Christopher Nolan put out a movie this summer, and I waited till January to catch up with it.
You still didn't say the name.
Is it Tenet? I watched Tenet, the most recent Christopher Nolan movie. For comparison, I saw Dunkirk in theaters the opening week, which is a commentary on both the state of the world, what the year Dunkirk came out, and also a state. I always have a problem with Chris Nolan when he does movies like Tenet. I watched Tenet, and maybe this is a really bad take, but the thought I kept having was, why isn't this just a straightforward heist movie? Like, I sort of want the spy espionage version of that movie with a lot less of the weird timelines and time travel and multiple dimensions and multiple timeline stuff. I think I find something. I think we give Chris Nolan a real pass with a lot of his movies that I don't necessarily know he deserves.
I almost feel the opposite way.
Let me elaborate.
Harshly critical on him because he's trying something so ambitious, rather than it's like when you have the top tier directors, their movies are put under such a sharper lens than the middle tier directors were. Like if this was Tenet was directed by a no name, you'd be like, look at this great new thing by a new director. It's a 4 and a 4.5. But because he's such a big name, you're like so much easier to be harsh on him.
I don't think my criticism is about Nolan's stature. I think my criticism is that if you make a movie that I have to go read a bunch of Reddit pages and Wikipedia pages to try to understand, then maybe your movie just isn't very good.
No, I don't think that's even the point, though. And he's open about this. He's like, I kind of make movies that are hard to understand to just like give yourself away to it. Like it doesn't matter if you understand it, which is how I really vibed with Tenet. Like I just gave up to a point where you could just go for the surface stills, just be like an observer of the craziness that's happening. He tries to make it both levels.
I found that at some parts, and I found a lot of parts of the movie that I found the weird stuff that they were doing, like pushing me away to the point where I kind of wanted that part to end. I think in my experience, looking at my opinions of Nolan, I tend to like his more grounded work. And I think in some ways I'm very frustrated by his continued need to like do all this crazy stuff. And I'm like, you could make really good movies that make more sense.
I think Christopher Nolan is really driven by what is cool. And he's just like, you know what would be cool? It's fucking like plane crashing into a warehouse.
Oh, I agree.
And that's it. I like Nolan trying to do cool shit.
You could do the thing is you could do the cool shit, the plane crashing and stuff, all that cool shit in a straightforward spy espionage heist movie. I kind of wanted to see that movie rather than the weird timeline stuff. Like I feel like a lot of the time travel actually actively detracted from my enjoyment of the movie to the point where like there's the initial shock value of realizing, oh, it's two versions of the same character. Which I think works, but then there's the moments where like they spend too much time focused on it and I'm just like bored. And then I think the third act is a kind of a bizarre
that's the hardest part to keep track of.
Well, it's not even just that, is that I am just genuinely confused why they ended up in some kind of weird sci-fi battle sequence that looks like it should be from a Liam Hemsworth movie. Like I don't understand. Like that like it's not bad, but I genuinely.
It's pretty similar to the end of Inception. Inception's the same way. This kind of like vast landscape where just like a lot of shit's going on.
Yeah. I'm also relatively critical of Inception. I think I have a lot of similar problems with it. Yeah. So I caught up on Tenet. I think it was really interesting that it did take me as long as it did. And I think that's some ways a commentary on Tenet and what Nolan is going for. I'm interested to see. I'm like, he's a director. I'm always interested to see what he does next. I would love to see more of the Dunkirk lane than the Tenet lane, if I'm being honest. Like, I think he can do really cool stuff in a more grounded universe. Like, I love the multiple timelines and multiple like stories connecting in Dunkirk, but I think that just makes a lot more sense than anything in Tenet does. And I think I would hope for a more grounded Nolan going forward.
I'm really hoping for the Christopher Nolan Adam Sandler comedy, like full on Happy Madison Sandler comedy directed by Christopher.
That would be interesting. I would watch that. Yeah, I would. Before we move on, I would say I don't think Tenet is a bad movie.
No, it's really
I think it's good. It's fine. I do think there's a lot of that movie that they're going to enjoy. It's very like inconsistent. There are moments you really enjoy. I think there are moments where I'm bored and kind of like confused.
I don't know why you didn't like it. I can tell you. It's because you didn't watch it in a wonderful VR headset, like special guys on this podcast.
I mean, that may be true. I do wonder what it would be like in theaters. That That's definitely a hard movie to focus on, like, not in a theater with potential distractions, really. Yeah, Tenet. It's a movie that came out last year, and if we didn't see it in the theaters, it was supposedly the end of cinema going as we know it.
And it kind of.
I like you, Chris Nolan, but that was it was a weird take for Chris Nolan to really push the theater experience in July and August.
This could be coming out this summer. There's no reason they could have waited a year.
Yeah, I do honestly wonder if Chris Nolan would have gotten better returns on his movie if he'd waited a year. If he'd pushed it back like Bond and Black Widow and all those other big movies and not tried to force it into the middle of a pandemic.
And I think a lot of negativity comes out because there's just so much pressure put upon this to be like the savior of movies. It got hyped so highly hyped before it because it was
it was the only movie coming out, and that means that every person was going to be critically going over that movie more than any other. And in some ways, this movie may have just benefited more from more people watching it while really happy about the state of movies. So I think just beyond the movie being okay, I think that his push around it was kind of pretty uninformed and kind of dangerous. And I think does kind of deserve some criticism for how heavily he was pushing a dangerous in-theater experience in quite a bad time for the world. And like Chris Nolan, maybe next time we think about how important things are, like, I'm sorry, theater experience is not as important as people's lives. And you focused a lot on how important the theater experience was. And you've continued to do this with the HBO Max stuff. And it's like, at some point, it's like, read the room. Have you looked around the world? The theater experience is basically irrelevant compared to the actual bad things going on right now.
Yeah. In some ways, a lot of Steve McQueen interviews recently, as he's promoting small acts and his kind of decision to do small acts, he just has a very realistic point of view, and it's kind of refreshing to hear. It's like, like I love the theatrical experience, but like I also have to like work with the times, and I have to meet people where they are.
And well, he had the Atlantic. I read the Atlantic interview with David Sim, and he was talking about how, of course he'd want it in the theater, but the way he made it allowed it the most people to see it, which it sort of at the end of the day, if you're a filmmaker, don't you just want the most people to see your movie? And, Steve McQueen got his movie to play on the BBC, and it's on Amazon Prime for everyone to go watch. So I feel like in the end, a bunch of people are going to get to watch it, which is a positive.
I think just a combination of idealism of like, this is the dream, and I will like push my movies to keep being in theatrical release, but like with Absolutely. A little bit of realism and flexibility when necessary.
Yeah. Also, just like, when we don't have a global pandemic, push for the theater experience all you want, and it's not dangerous, Yeah. The biggest danger is like, choking on a popcorn kernel.
You can't fight against reality. The reality is it was unreasonable, so you have to make changes.
Yeah. Agreed. Let us continue on to our main discussion today. So we got the Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. I will tell the audience, Zach and I, this was Zach's idea. We watched both the Denzel Washington and Tony Scott version, and also the original 1974 version. We did not watch the TV movie from the 80s with Edward James Olmos, but we are going to talk about the Denzel Tony Scott version. We want to talk about that because that's the main focus of our month. But we also wanted to compare it to the original because I think it's it's interesting to compare. But first, Zach Ford is going to give us the Zach Ford, Denzel Washington, and Tony Scott Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 plot summary, and he's going to do it in limerick form.
Oh shit! Okay, I need Google the form of a limerick. There was a man in New York. The man was an operator. I already fucked it up. He was a train operator. He looked like Denzel Washington, but chunky and with glasses and bald. Probably the best form of Denzel. If I can relate to him, it's the first time I don't feel like he's better than me. I was like, I'm one of you, Denzel. Also, I'm not quite chunky, but I'm getting there.
It's COVID time. We're all getting
there. He was a train operator, but he really should be like a big shot train man. That's his actual official title, big shot train man. But he was accepting bribes. Just who knew all these like train business crimes that could happen? Accepting bribes from Japanese train makers to pick their train. He may or may, I think he actually did say he ended up doing it. But we're going to pick the train anyways. But because of that, he kind of got like demoted while I was under investigation to just being the like dispatch person or whatever his job was. More ground level organizing the trains. I don't know. They're really into like train operations. Like it's a very severe job and very important. Really, like you're just like making sure the trains get to different places in New York. Okay. Anyways, a train gets hijacked by John Travolta's goatee and his group of hoodlums, and they contact or the dispatch. Denzel gets a hold of John Travolta. John Travolta just decides like this is my guy. It's the only person I'm going to talk to. Definitely the best way to get what you want in negotiation is to talk to the train dispatcher that has no rights to negotiate with you. But because as soon as the police try to take Denzel off, they shoot a person. So like, get him back. We're gonna let him take over the whole police negotiation. Just to be irresponsible safety protocols. And I don't know. You negotiate shit, and they try to give money to the John Travolta's goatee, and a lot of people get shot on this train. There's a computer getting Wi-Fi for some reason in the middle of the thing, and I don't feel like that technology didn't exist in 2009. I'm very confused about this. So they're watching everyone on there. That's how they identified who the people were on the train. Somehow, I don't remember what the last half hour of the movie, Denzel like chases him down and he shoots John Travolta off a bridge. I skipped an hour, but you can skip an hour in the movie. Just fast forward. It's okay.
Wow. Zack taking shots. I do think this has a lot of the Tony Scott-ness to it. Like all the Denzel sitting at a mic talking to somebody and looking up at a big board that shows us where all the trains are and how to do all the things. Like that's just very Tony Scott.
Just like Deja Vu.
It is really like Deja Vu. And it also has a lot of like the flashiness and the jump cuts and the loud music and the like the beat. They do a lot of using of beat to set momentum and tension is like a really big thing that Tony Scott seems to appreciate in his movies.
Connecting Pelham, Deja Vu, and Crimson Tide is that it's really creating action and tension out of kind of static moments. There's nothing. I mean, Unstoppable goes very opposite, right? The whole thing is kinetic and about motion, but everything's kind of still like all the action and suspense in Pelham comes from phone calls. It's just people talking with walkies, for the whole time, and that's where the suspense comes from.
It's all timing.
This conversation, it's action through dialogue, like we were saying, Crimson Tide. That's what this movie kind of works too. It's action suspense through that conversation.
Yeah, it's also kind of like it's like Crimson Tide. It buys into this idea that the only way for this tough situation to be resolved is for all these individual and potentially self-serving people to work together, even if they have the same overall goal, but their underlying goals, their motivations, their level of commitment may be different, and that's why and then the added time crunch put in place by Travolta really kind of elevates it and forces, Denzel's talking to this guy and he's talking to the hostage negotiator and how they get the money, and they're talking to the mayor and they're trying to this person and that person. And like, that's kind of similar to what happens in Crimson Tide, where they're trying to, the communication between all the different divisions on the submarine.
Yeah, the time crunch, is the structure he uses, I think, the most to create the suspense, but also I don't feel like that time structure exists for any reason other than just a reason to create tension. Because like why does the time matter, John Travolta? Why do you care? Is it just a power play? But really, it just seems like bad negotiation strategy. You're being so strict, but don't you want the money?
Actually, I disagree. I think that the time crunch is put in there specifically so it puts the larger entities of government on their toes and weakens, because government is most functional when a lot of different people can all share their ideas and pool and come to the best solution. If you knock them to an hour crunch, you prevent them from functioning the way that they want to function.
That makes sense. However, when your punishment is I'm going to kill somebody every 1 minute you're late, you're going to run out of people, and then you lost all your negotiations.
Like, I don't know if you noticed this. John Travolta,
you're late.
I don't know if you know this. John Travolta, sort of crazy, maybe a little wacko.
I mean, this is like, I think the like advantage of this movie compared to the original, but also hurts the movie at the same time, because I think watching John Travolta go wacko is the primary entertainment of this movie.
Oh yeah.
Him saying crazy shit, him just talking about the one like teenager on board and saying, I don't know, he wears skateboarding clothes, he pulls it off.
It's great. His dialogue is so good.
Moment. It's really good. He just says crazy things. It's fun, but also I feel like because he's running on this chaotic momentum, I have no idea what he's really trying to get at, or like his motivation or what he's doing. He's just a madman, and that's the whole thing. Rather, it doesn't seem believable. He doesn't seem calculated enough or intelligent enough to like pull it off, because he's kind of just controlled by his impulses.
I mean, they sort of set him up as kind of like a massive narcissistic, overuser Wall Street guy. I do think when you come to the villain, Travolta is way more interesting than the villain in the original movie. I don't know if he's better than the villain in the original movie, but he is chewing the series. He is devouring it and feasting on it, and like he is going to town. And it is really fun to watch. But yes, I do think it does knock his character a bit, because you don't, and maybe that's the point, is that the character is so unpredictable and so unknowable that it makes Denzel being able to pick up small details in the phone message, in the discussion, and the talking to him more interesting. But he is definitely, like, he doesn't seem like a professional. He seems like a mad.
You want to watch the world burn.
He does have the attitude of like the Joker or some kind of terrorist whose eventual aim is not to gain something financial or something valuable, but rather to just blow up the entire thing or destroy property or cause like he does seem more like the person that, rather than getting all that money and then keeping it and then doing something with it, he does seem a little bit more like the guy who would be like, I'm going to get all this money and then burn it, so like the city just can't have it.
No, he's kind of like the villain in Tenet. That's well, but I'm going to take the world down with me. And
he has like moments of being really smart, like his whole like, oh, he's getting $2K and he's put $2 million and he's putting it into stocks, and then he's tanking the stock market.
I think they try to build it up by, they really hint that he was like a stockbroker, to where it really was like, the city burned me, so now I'm going to burn the city.
Does seem a little bit like that. Does seem revenge is definitely a part.
Yeah, which is like fine as a motivation. It just doesn't make it believable that you can like, get away with it, because you're a little more reckless, and he's like so reckless. But to compare it to the original done by Robert Shaw in the first movie is what I think they did, because what is more interesting in the original is they care so much more about like the crew, like the whole crew gets a lot more notice than this does, and they all have more interesting interplay between each other. I feel like they took all the characters, especially like Hector Elizondo and Robert Shaw, and melded them into just John Travolta. John Travolta is Hector Elizondo's like wild card gunman, and Robert Shaw put together.
Yeah, you have a little bit of Luis Guzman as Phil Ramos.
Yeah.
But he's a very small character. But the other two guys, the other two members of the crew are basically nothing.
Yeah, Guzman's just similar just in function. Like he's just there to drive the train. But he doesn't have the like calmness that Barn Bassam kind of brought to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Mispronounced. How do you say his name?
Balsam. I think it's Balsam. Okay. He's very good.
Yeah, very good.
Back to the remake for a second. I do think one of the big upgrades is the mayor. I think James Gandolfini is a much better mayor.
Well, it has no point to the movie. So once again, just like John Travolta, I think it's one of the best parts and one of the worst parts together, because it doesn't really have a function. It doesn't have much to say about the point, because they kind of want to go like, political offices don't have much control over the city and can't really handle situations like this, but doesn't really, the original one kind of does. But this one doesn't really play with that, because they also want to make him seem kind of noble at the same time. Like he's like just the like blue collar kind of guy, right? The subway. And he's kind of just there. He's just like informed of it, and he's there to like say congratulations, Denzel. But he also is just like such a New York guy. And I think that New York humbleness blue collar thing just worked on me. I was like,
I don't think he's given anything more to do than the original movie. I just think James Gandolfini is a really good screen presence and just really works as like the New York mayor. He just kind of plays that character really well. And some parts of the original guy who played in the original just doesn't really seem like he would ever get elected mayor of New York. Like,
No,
he's so
pathetic.
anti-New York. Like, James Gandolfini seems like the guy who would be he seems like a New Yorker. And the original guy just flat out doesn't.
No,
He's way too like wimpy and weak and like lazy. It's like how on earth do you ever win over anyone in New York to win election?
I think this is like a really high level job by James Gandolfini doing more than what you're given. I think it's a really
absolutely.
good performance with a role that doesn't matter.
I think it's literally the same role from the original, and he just gives so much.
I think it hits the pettiness or patheticness of the character a little more. It's a little more about how the like lack of functionality by the the mayor's office and the politics to handle these situations, and a little more how they're like controlled by voter base. I think it has more political, not satire, but
Commentary
to it, commentary than this one does. I think they use like the plot points of it, but didn't care about. Tony Scott doesn't care about saying shit. So,
I do think the biggest thing about this movie compared to the original is the original has 5 to 6 good characters you pay attention to, and this movie really cuts it down to the one-on-one. This movie is almost 100% the one-on-one between Denzel and John Travolta, which is in some ways the reason why Denzel and Travolta shine so much more than the characters in the original. In some ways, because they're just asked to do a lot more and they're given a lot more to do.
Yeah, that's the Tony Scottness of it. That's what he really brought to it. He's like a movie star director. He's much more an action guy. That like even tonally, like the original works as a thriller, and this, even though without changing too much of the plot, just functions in an action kind of style. The energy is action, the chaotic. The fact that it's just kind of dumber. It's just a little more action quality to it. It becomes more
it's also
surface level engagement. That's what Tony Scott cares about. There's not.
It's also Tony Scott's version is flashier, it's louder, it's faster paced, it's more action based, it's more constant tension rather than moments of tension, and it's very star heavy. Like, John Turturro is the hostage negotiator in this movie. John Turturro, relatively famous actor, long career, lots of great performances, has almost nothing to do in this movie. It is in some ways very weird that John Turturro was even cast as that character, because he could have been anyone, really, because they don't give him much to do.
You still want someone able to deliver those functionary parts as with Rivera.
Mm-hmm.
He has more to do than James Gandolfini's mayor as far as helping the plot move forward. We briefly talk about the worst character in this movie? The like dickhole that's Denzel's boss, I guess, that is just like a complete asshole to him for no reason.
Michael Rispoli.
Michael Rispoli, who then kind of forgets that he's mad at him once they're in the middle of the thing. But the first part of the movie, he's like starting to like talk to this terrorist that's taking over a train that you're in charge of, and Michael Rispoli's just there like badgering him for no reason, and it's real bad.
He's a jerk, and he's a moron, because it's clearly like he just doesn't like Denzel, and he's like blatantly letting this override any sense of the job he's attempting to accomplish, to the point where like he's actively makes the situation worse and should be held responsible for the death of a person. Like, he is directly responsible for the first hostage being murdered by like kicking Denzel off like an idiot. Like, he's a big idiot. I do think this movie,
the police would never let Denzel carry it on that long. That just would not happen.
No, I'm not saying they would.
An amateur to negotiate.
I'm not saying they would. I don't think the police would kick him away because they would want to make sure it was okay to transition over to somebody else in case the guy, the terrorist basically decided to respond poorly. I do think this movie it doesn't have as much commentary as the original, but it also is like very much shows how blatantly incompetent the New York government and the New York Police Department is. Like, first off, they let them hijack. They hit like 4 people hijack a train. It basically takes them quite a while to even realize the train has been hijacked. They have to get money. They're trying to run the money through the streets. They don't shut the streets down. They just keep running cars, and they're like smashing into things and falling off bridges. I'm just like, how on earth did you not just like, we were locking down, every single block. You could send out your entire force. You could block everything. You could make that easy, and they just don't. And it's like a truly bizarre moment. And then, basically, if Denzel isn't smart,
broker. What they could have changed because they wanted to keep that action scene from the original one of transferring the money. But it's 2009, my friend, and he was like a fucking Wall Street broker. Like he would have had some offshore account for them to transfer money that was like undetectable. It would not have been handled in cash. They just kept that physical level so they can create.
I do love the weird, like, take this random number and multiply it times 19, and what do you get? And it's like, turns out to be 10 million. It's like, why didn't you just say 10 million?
I hope he just randomly number generated 3 numbers. Like, okay, multiply these 3 numbers together.
Oh, there are definitely moments like that where it's like they're just so massively incompetent. And like, basically, this movie, if Denzel isn't smart enough to realize it shouldn't stop there, like they would just escape. Let's see. I do actually think they do some smart stuff in the initial conversations. Denzel starts picking up information like in the conversations. Oh, I think he's Catholic. Oh, I think he's this. Oh, he uses these terms. Oh, I think he's the Wall Street broker because he calls people commodities, which is kind of heavy-handed but also effective in the story.
Yeah, for sure. That note-taking scene is one of the better scenes. It kind of gives him any credence on why he should be like left in charge to do negotiate because he proved that he can handle it competently.
Yeah, it also kind of shows that Denzel's like a little bit of level above everyone else he's working with. Oh,
do you know how you can tell he's a level above everyone he's working with?
He's Denzel Washington.
Because he's Denzel Washington.
Do you have anything else specifically to talk about in the Denzel Tony Scott movie? Because I have one more thing.
I do want to say, you can talk about your one thing because mine's ridiculous. So we can say.
Well, mine's word. So there's a couple. A guy is on the train and he is basically video chatting with his girlfriend, and in the middle they get taken over. What?
I brought this up in the plot.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's the truly insane one. I feel like we need to talk about this. So terrorists have taken over the train. They have guns, and she's like, "I love you." And then when he doesn't respond because speaking would physically endanger him, she goes, "Well, are you gonna say it back?" And I'm like, "What is wrong with you, you psycho?" He has to literally go, "It's not a great time to talk right now." Like he has to actively tell her, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't be talking right now because there's like people with guns." It's just it's such a weird moment.
To be fair, teenagers, stupid.
Very stupid. She's very stupid.
And function on purely like emotions on their sleeve level. But also like that character made me real sad. She was also like flashing him in the beginning of the movie. You know, she didn't want to do that. She was just trying to get him to love her, give her attention. It was all very depressing.
Well, did you get there's a weird line where after they get hijacked and he realizes that the line is still up because they have the internet, he goes, "Take the feed and put it on our website." I'm just like, what website do you guys have in 2000?
Website.
I'm like, I think you've like subtly hinted to the fact you may be like cam models and doing like sex cam. Like it's a very weird like side plot, like very almost
Justin Hart Ginny Forever website just to commemorate their relationship. But also, like, why is he even talking to her on the fucking train? You know you're going to lose your call. In fact, you should never have a call. There's no Wi-Fi in Subway strong enough for, like, a computer at that point, 2009, a laptop. There's no way. You would just call them on the phone and talk to the person.
Yeah, you probably should have. Yeah, it was an interesting thing.
Where are they getting Wi-Fi from? There's no Wi-Fi in trains. It just does not exist.
It might exist above ground, but definitely not below ground.
But I don't think that it would. Where's the Wi-Fi signal coming from? There's none that are like within the subways. They don't have their own like routers.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, and you can't like use data for that because
you can't use data for it. It doesn't exist.
All right. Well,
okay. Here's what I want to talk about. So, I think I spent a half hour of this movie. Considering how I would negotiate with the terrorists on the train.
All right.
For both versions, especially. But so the thing is, they need to get power on their side. And I would say, like, time limit my ass, and they go against it. I'm like, okay, then you're not going to get money. If they care about the money, they're going to still have to have some sort of negotiation. Killing people, sure, but like also, my thing is, you kill one person, the money is gone. It's done. And our aim is to now, kill you and arrest you, and we're not even going to try to negotiate. But if you keep everyone safe, we'll give you the money, and you have a higher chance of getting out. So either you play a little bit by our rules and keep everyone safe, and we'll take as much time as it takes for us to get there, and you have a chance of getting out and running free, or you kill someone because you wouldn't play by our rules, and now you spend the rest of the time never getting the money. There's no chance, and you're running for your life, hoping you'll stay alive. So that's how we negotiate. I don't know if you know this about me, Lucas. I'm a tough ass. I'm just a hardball, as you would say.
I just think I think that in any scenario like this, I think it's so easy from the outside to say how you negotiate. And I think that the truth of the matter is, if you were the person stuck in the line with a crazy person waving a gun around in a cab with a bunch of people, I think you start giving them anything they want. Because I think, especially as a member of the New York government, you would rather give them $40 million, $100 million than have to deal with news coverage of the police butchered it and now there's 20 people dead in a train car. Because that's like the PR nightmare that ruins, the entire city. And then like 13 people 40 people have to resign. Do you have anything else to say on just the Denzel and Tony Scott version, or should we move on to a comparison with the original?
I think I'm good. It's fine.
Let's talk about the original. So the original is directed by Joseph Sargent. Don't know him. And it stars Walter Matthau in the Denzel role and Robert Shaw in the John Travolta role, which is weird to say because they came first. But let's see. The difference is, first off, Walter Matthau is actually the higher up at the place. He's not been demoted like Denzel, so he has a little bit more power.
No, he's a police officer.
No, he's a transit officer.
Yeah, that's like train police, I thought. I took that as train police.
He is a lieutenant, Zachary Garber.
Lieutenant, he's train police.
He's MTA police. He's train police versus Denzel, who is a dispatcher. In John Travolta is an ex-Wall Street dude who went to jail. Robert Shaw is just he's just like a mercenary, which is a less interesting backstory. Like basically everyone, the Phil Ramos character still exists, of the former train driver who did some crime and is no longer with the place. That character still exists, but is a larger character in the original. But basically, it goes from being a mercenary. Robert Shaw is a mercenary.
I think I'd rather have as a mercenary. I think it's the fact they try to give John Travolta a backstory without really caring about it. It just doesn't seem believable with his actions.
Well, I think they have to give it to him because you've made John Travolta a much larger part of the story than Robert Shaw was.
I think their focus on Robert Shaw's villain was more the competence. It seems more believable. He was like level-headed and like could take action when necessary.
Oh,
he is much more calculating.
He's brutally competent. He doesn't talk to them. He basically so Travolta has conversations with Denzel where he goes on speeches and he just like talks about crazy stuff and random stuff and stuff that doesn't matter. Robert Shaw basically only talks to Walter Matthau when he's like, "Here are your orders. Here's how much time you have left." Like he's not playing a game. Like he is telling him how it's going to go and what's going to happen. I think we both like the original better than the remake.
Yeah.
And I think the remake is in some ways more fun. It is fun to watch John Travolta be crazy.
Honestly amazed how different they are, because I wasn't expecting that. That was a pretty faithful movie, but like there's some plot wise, but just tonally, as I mentioned earlier, I think they're
it's completely different. The original is like a thriller drama, and the new one is like an action movie.
Thriller drama with like a sitcom last frame.
It's a good one. They also like in the original, Robert Shaw dies by putting his feet between tracks and killing himself like 30 minutes before the movie is electrocuting himself to death. And then
great. It's real shocking. It comes from nowhere. It's kind of
disgusting
in a way I like. Yeah.
And then the rest of the movie, the last 30 minutes, the end of the Denzel Tony Scott version is John Travolta is dead. So it ends with the main villain being killed. In the original, it ends up being a hunt for the driver.
For Martin Balsam's character.
Yes. And this is when my favorite character comes into it, which is, of course, Lieutenant Rico Patron, who is wonderful.
Well, my favorite is Martin Balsam's character, so
he's very together. Good. Lieutenant Rico Patron, played by the all-time great. What?
Martin Balsam. I keep saying Balsam. The S is after the L, and I'm going to write this 30 times down in cursive and print. Time I'm right.
All right. Lieutenant Rico Patron is played by, of course, the legendary comedian Jerry Stiller, and I do appreciate what?
That's the only reason you like him.
He's also his dry humor is very funny. I also like the fact that he is just short enough that he always looks like a child dressing up as a cop.
And his shoulders are always like a little high.
He is like shoulders a little too high. His arms are like way too long. He just has a Jerry Stiller all-time great looking body. But he's also very funny in this movie. There's a great moment where a cop who's in the tunnel calls him and goes, "This guy just like got shot a bunch by a machine gun," and he goes, "Is he dead?" Just completely straight up. And then there's also moments where the guy's hiding in the tunnel whispering, and he goes, "Speak up, I can't hear you."
Yeah, he's a funny
guy.
Some
good lines. Got some good lines. I think he's actually really funny character.
Have more bits, just like jokes. Because there's the whole bit that starts with him, where they're like, the train, it's moving. They're like, what's moving? And they're like, oh, is that fucking? I'm thinking the wrong movie. That's an Unstoppable. No, it is that one. All right, I was worried. We also watched Unstoppable. Spoiler alert for next week. So all these trains are mixed in my head. They're like, it's on the move, and they're like, what's on the move? They're like, what do you think is on the move? The only train's been taken hostage, and they have to repeat that 5 times because every single person asks, what's on the move? And it's a bit. They have good jokes.
There are some good jokes. There's some good jokes. But yeah, it is vastly different, the two versions, in a lot of respects. And also, even if you take out the styles of the directors, which I think are hugely different. And I do think actually Tony Scott does a lot more with his version than Joseph Sargent did with his. The original is very much shot kind of straight up, kind of no nonsense, kind of just let the things happen in front of the camera. There's not a lot of
more procedural in a lot of
there's not a lot of flair outside of the final shot, which is there's a great shot. Rico Patron and Lieutenant Garber, played by Walter Matthau, go to Martin Balsam's apartment to look, because they're looking for the only person who got away is the driver. Yeah. And they look around his apartment and they don't find anything, and they walk to the door and say, "Oh, we're sorry for bothering you," and they shut the door. And Martin Balsam sighs, and then the door swings open, and there's just he just looks to the door. He sneezes, and then he looks to the door, and he just gives him the eye. And it is a great shot. It is
old Matthau Lemon comedy moment. He took that from The Odd Couple.
It's so good. It is an all-time great last shot. It is such a good last shot of Walter Matthau just giving him the eye, going, "I know you did it."
But I think that's a big part of what's enjoyable about the movie, because it's just so much more steady in its characters. The remake is a lot more emotionally heightened. Everyone's kind of shouting and tense and upset, including John Travolta and Denzel. They're much more heightened characters. When we already talked about Robert Shaw being a more calculating villain, but so is Matthau's detective. It's just more steady about it. He's really calm throughout the whole thing. It's about doing his job and how he gets it. When he watches Robert Shaw electrocute himself, he was just like, that guy's a dumbass. And I was like,
Walter Matthau also doesn't have the hanging investigation, potential criminal activity, bribe stuff hanging over him. There's added drama built into Denzel's character that doesn't exist for Matthau. Matthau is just a upstanding member of the MTA police.
There's no backstory needed in this. That's not it's just about how do people act in this situation of a train being taken hostage. What is the procedure to handle the negotiations to solve this car? And that's what matters. You don't need to create, like Tony Scott does in all his movies, especially in Unstoppable. Wait till we get to that. Just forcing in melodramatic backstories into the characters, thinking that's what you need to care about them, rather than sometimes just watching people act and how they behave in situations is enough to develop those characters and care about them. Because I felt like these characters are, I would say Walter Matthau character probably better developed than Denzel's character.
I would disagree. I think Denzel is better.
The man a little more in how he acts and how he handles his job. I don't need to know that he, has having marital issues or lost his job and under investigation.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is I think the leads are more interesting in Scott's version. But I think that's also just such a nature of the two movies. That movie wants to focus on the two of them. And I think in some ways, some of the best parts of the original is that they really give time and moments for these like supporting characters to like, there's so many really great, like classic New York actors in that one that are just really have like really good bits because they're just like the classic New York character actor. They've got kind of a funny voice and they got kind of a look. Like Bill Cobb is one of the people in it, and
who's Bill Cobb in this?
He's a guy. He's one of the guys on the train, I believe.
Okay. I just don't know what young Bill Cobb looks like. I only know old Bill Cobb. I know.
I don't think I knew him either. I just saw him and I was like, I feel like
that's all I got. Airbud coach Bill Cobb. He's really good at teaching dogs how to play basketball.
Yeah, he's just one. Martin Balsam is like a character you just don't get in the remake.
Victor Elizondo's like sleazeball, asshole wildcard gunman, as well, who's like unidentifiable as young Hector Elizondo. But that one you don't get. You kind of have the wildcard gunman in the new one, but they spend like 2 minutes on him at the beginning.
But his only characteristic is he's an idiot who may pull the trigger too fast. Like that's his only. In the new version, that's the only characteristic.
In the old version, he's more the person that thinks he should be in charge. Like he's gonna.
Yeah, there's a little extra to him that makes you wonder, like that gives you a reason to understand why he just might start mouthing off, and he's pissing off, Robert Shaw, and like why he would do that. There's just I think in some ways there's more characters, and they give a little bit more time to them, which really works in a lot of ways. Just like it gives them a little bit of a bitter breath with the movie. That's kind of what you want. The for better or for worse, Tony Scott's version is just it's a two-hander really. Above all, it's like the entire point of that movie is the phone calls between the two of them.
Because he cares about movie stars, and I think the original one cared about the heist.
Yeah. I mean, the original one also just. I guess Walter Matthau was a pretty decent star at this point.
Yeah, Robert Shaw. Yeah, I was looking at his filmography. Some big movies lead up to this. He also, it's before Jaws, but he already did.
He's still a James Bond movie at this point, hasn't he? He's played Blofeld.
He did Russia to Love. He already did Man for All Seasons, which I think may have
just did the Sting the year before.
Yeah, so he is a known actor, respected actor at this point.
Yeah, I actually, more than anything, the Travolta one is the one that feels like the most star performance in Tony Scott's version.
I was thinking the end. I was looking at his filmography too, and I'm pretty sure this is the end of John Travolta at all being a big blockbuster leading man or co-leading man.
Like relevant, yeah, really relevant at all.
Because he goes straight to DVD pretty much after that.
Has he made any? I'm trying to.
Or standout supporting roles on TV shows.
He does an Oliver Stone movie.
Savage, yeah, but that's a supporting role.
He does Gotti. Yeah, he doesn't really do anything after this. Half these movies you've never heard of.
The
biggest thing that John Travolta does after this movie is a TV show.
Old Dogs.
The biggest thing he does is The People versus O.J. Simpson. That's the biggest performance he has after this. But yeah, that's basically the only thing. Do you have any final thoughts on either version of it or Denzel?
No, but I do. I do want to say that sometimes it could be like, why am I going to watch the remake or the original after I already watched one? Because it can get tiring to do the story over. I've had that experience with Girl Drag Tattoo specifically. I read the book and watched both versions of the movies at the same time. It was this was is too much.
Okay,
So
wait. Don't diss those. I like both movies there. I'm a big hardcore.
you consume all three of those versions like within the same month. It could be a little overwhelming and you get a little sick of the story. But I think I do want to say I find it rewarding to watch them back to back. So if you do happen to watch, Taking of Pelham, I do find it rewarding to watch the other one right away. Just the comparison's interesting. I think it helps you notice a little bit of what Tony Scott brings to movies, especially. I think it stands out when you're comparing it to the same story told by someone else. So I would recommend it.
I will echo your sentiments in that these two movies may have the same title, but they are about as dissimilar as the two Hitchcock versions of The Man Who Knew Too Much. Like there is a completely different tone and idea behind these movies, and I think both of them are good movies, and both of them have value and are enjoyable. And yeah, I think you made the correct point, which is that it really does tell you, it really gives you an insight to what Tony Scott thinks is important. Because you see him take the original and go, I don't care about all these things, and I want all these things. And like you really get to see like him directly adapt a previous movie to his own taste and his ideas.
Yeah, sure.
And with that being said, we have finished the Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. Zach and I are going to go ride the subway. Actually, we're not, because being in a subway during COVID time sounds like a terrible idea. But yeah, we will be back next week when we talk about more trains, not underground. It's unstoppable time. Get excited. We may have a fight over this movie because I think we like this movie quite a bit different. And with that being said, we will see you next week. Bye-bye, guys.
Start spreading the news. I'm talking today. I want to be a part of it. The Lucas and Zack podcast show. Good night, everybody. I love you.